Boiling Point's homework review. You were told to design a class that stores a temperature in a temperature field. This class will be used to test the freezing and boiling points of several substances. Okay, we will name our class Temperature Gauge. Public class Temperature Gauge. And our field would be named Temperature. Okay, and private double temperature. For this problem, we could have named our class anything. It did not tell us the name of our class. It just told us the name of the field in the class. Next, we were told to include the appropriate accessor and mutator methods for the field. These are the get and set methods. So the accessor is the get method. You say get first and then the name of the instance field. Then for the mutator, you have the set temperature. Define accessor and mutator methods. Public double get temperature and return temperature. The mutator method, public void set temperature, double temp, temperature equals temp. Next, we need to define appropriate constructors. A constructor is a method that is the same name as my class. Public temperature gauge. One constructor can be a default no argument constructor and it can have no data. Temperature equals 0. Another constructor, public temperature gauge, it can be used to accept a value, to initialize the instance field. You didn't need to have two constructors, but I am showing you that you could have more than one constructor, a method that is the same name as my class, but has no return type. Include the following methods: is ethyl freezing and is ethyl boiling. The ethyl freezing method should return a Boolean value true if the temperature is at or below negative 173. Otherwise, false is returned. Is ethyl boiling should return true if the temperature is at or above 172. Otherwise, false is returned. Public Boolean is ethyl freezing if the temperature is at or below less than or equal to negative 73, then return true. Else, return false. Public Boolean is ethyl boiling if temperature is greater than or equal to 172, then return true. Else, return false. Notice that you did not include a parameter for those methods. You did not say a parameter here is ethyl boiling and pass a value here. The temperature variable here is that instance field that was declared earlier above. Okay, its value was set in the constructor. You could have also set it by calling the method setTemperature, using that accessor method we defined. Now, let's demonstrate the class. We will ask the user to enter a temperature, then display a list of substances that will freeze at that temperature. You could also create methods for checking for oxygen to see if it's freezing or boiling point. So I have also included is oxygen freezing and is oxygen boiling, using the freezing point and boiling points for oxygen for those methods. Now let's test it in a demo. File new, import java.util.scanner, public class temperature test, I'll say demo, public static void main string args. Let's create our scanner objects. And let's create our temperature, double temp temperature a variable. And I'm going to prompt the user to enter in a temperature. System.out.println enter a temperature. And I'll read it in. Temp equals keyboard dot next double. Now let's create a temperature gauge object. Temperature gauge T gauge equals new temperature gauge. And if I want to use the constructor that has a parameter value, I pass temp. And it will call that second constructor that I have defined. Okay, we will list substances that will freeze at, substances that freeze at that temperature. So, if T gauge dot is ethyl freezing, or T gauge dot is oxygen freezing. Those are the only two substances I have. So if either ethyl freezing or oxygen freezing, I want to say that they are freezing. So I want to include that in my list. System.out.println substances that freeze at T gauge dot get temperature plus include, and now if T gauge dot is ethyl freezing, I'm going to say system.out.println if T gauge dot is oxygen freezing system dot out dot print line oxygen. So if either is ethyl freezing or is oxygen freezing, it's going to include objects that list at that freezing. Otherwise, I'll say else. I'll say system.out.println no substances freeze at plus T gauge dot get temperature. Okay, let's compile. Okay, I forgot to close my main. Now compile. Cannot find symbol is, I think I forgot a Y, an L. And did I misspell gauge somewhere? Right here. And compile. Okay, so it compiles. I asked the user to enter in a temperature. I use that temperature and pass that initial value for my temperature for my T gauge. I check to see if that temperature is freezing, ethyl freezing, or is oxygen freezing at that temperature. And I will display the items that freeze. Okay, compile and run. It says enter in temperature. I'm going to enter in, let's say, 100. No substances freeze at 100. That's correct. The freezing point of ethyl alcohol is negative 173. The freezing point for oxygen is negative 362. I'm going to run it again. Enter in the temperature. I'm going to enter in negative 175. It says substances that freeze at negative 175 include ethyl. Run it again. And I'm going to say at negative 377. Substances that include freeze at negative 377 include ethyl and oxygen. Okay, so we've designed a class that stores a temperature in a temperature field. We included the appropriate accessor and mutator methods, defined a constructor, included the following methods